Hey, welcome back to the iZotope channel. I'm Bradley Denniston. I've got a new track up, and I'm going to walk you through exactly how I'd mix it from start to finish using iZotope's music production suite.
I don't mind your summer rain keeping me up. She don't need me to rush to make good love.
So if you've ever looked at all these plugins and you're wondering, dude, where do I start? Just stick with me. I'll show you how to get the most out of every step of your mix and maybe even have you rethink your own workflow in the process.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
Now, if you're already a music production suite owner and you haven't fully explored it, or maybe you're thinking about upgrading, you're about to hear why this suite has everything you need to take a mix and master to the highest professional level. So let's dive right into the video. Let's get into it. Let's go. Let's mix. All right, step one, we got to mix like a pro, not like a noob, not like an amateur. And the professional always sets up the session because we need to be able to know exactly where we're at, how to find things. It's all about navigation. When you're mixing, you want to take all the technical stuff and just, it's not there, right? You can close your eyes and you can just and you're just like painting, like finger painting. That's the way I like to think about it. I like it to be super creative. So to be creative, we have to get really disciplined. We have to get organized. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure all my tracks are colored and they are routed to their subgroups. And I'll show you exactly how I do that right now. First, let's just play like the chorus of this. Let's go pre-chorus to chorus so you can hear a little bit of this song here. Totally unmixed, not even balanced.
Who am I?
Oh, this is going to be fun. All right, so it is literally like a show. It just doesn't sound very good at all, and it's all unorganized. We have Taste the Rainbow colors going on right here, and this is like Skittles right here. You know what I'm saying? I have no idea what's going on. And it's like Skittles, like the tropical version of Skittles. You know, those like Easter Sunday colors? It's not even the OG Skittles. So let's get things organized. First things first, I think of this as like a Christmas tree, okay? So top down, we got master augs. But on the very top is the star, which is the master bus, okay? Oh, it's the master bus. A star because it's like around Christmas, right? So that is where everything's going to end up going out. That's monitor left, right, out to my speakers. So what's going on there? So I don't usually add anything there. I just use this so I have a dry master bus that I can bring a reference mix, a demo mix from the client that's already bounced, and I can A/B it against what I'm mixing and mastering. So I can compare easily. And that's why I have the master augs right under it. So if that's the star, this is the tip of the tree. This is the master augs. This is where everything ends up that's in my mix. All these stems here in this session. So that is going to be the top. And then I got the all drums, the all vocals, right? So I have my all buses is what I call these. This is going to be all drums, all vocals, all instruments. And on these, there's going to be nothing. It's basically, you'll find out. It's like, so parallels can all end up there as well. So if I have like parallel kick processing, that's going to end up at the all drums. So it doesn't end up on the drum mix bus getting processed along with the other drums, right? So we're not like tripling, doubling up on stacking, compression and saturation and all that. So then under that is the mix buses, and the mix buses are accepting all of the different individual stems. So if we go from the bottom up, we go individual stems, you know, vocals, vocal, right? They go to the vocal mix bus, and then the vocal mix bus goes to the all vocals bus, and then the all vocals goes to the master augs, and then it goes out to the star, right? Which is the master fader, master output. That's it. That's the routing. It's simple. You're going to know exactly how it works by the end of this video because I'm going to beat it to death. Like, we're going to keep talking about it. You're going to understand it. I promise you. Even if you're lost right now, just stick with me. All right? Because sometimes it's like, I can't explain all this until we're in the process and I'm tweaking stuff and we're throwing plugins on. So for now, we're going to color everything. We're going to get everything routed. So for example, the vocals here, let's go to the vocals. They're all this kind of hot pink color. And you can see them, you can find them really quickly. And I can see all the vocals right here in the chorus. Let's play this part.
Who am I to even try?
Right? And those are going out vocal mix bus right here. So you go to the bus here and you see that's going to vocal mix. Now that vocal mix bus is up here and that's going to be here. That's where we're getting all the vocals at, where we can start to put things like Neutron 5 on and we'll get into that in the very next section of this. And then that's going to the all vocals bus. So bus here, go all vocals. And the all vocals bus here is accepting that. And then it's going out to the master aux bus. Okay, so just to make that really, really clear for you guys. And that's coming in master aux. And then we got Ozone 12 on the master aux. Again, doing nothing so far. It's not doing anything. It's just there. It's on. All right. Okay, cool. Now let's move to section 2, where we're going to start setting up Neutron 5s and dialing in some of the mix buses. And we're going to do some balancing and panning and all that good stuff. All right, let's go. Let's go. Come on. Now that we got everything organized, let's get a little balance going with Neutron and make sure all our levels are really good, but also just start to get the drums and the bass rocking up, right? So on our Insight 2 plugin, I want to just check our RMS versus peak, our crest factor, and where we're at and what kind of headroom we have. Because right now on the Ozone 12, I'm doing about 4.3 dB of gain on the IRC 5. Okay, so let's check that out and just see how that's rocking. Okay, about 13 dB of headroom there with the drums and the bass together. So on the drum mix bus, let's start to get the drums kind of beefed up and get them like exciting, right? And then we'll get the bass to match up with the drums. And then we're going to go to the next section where we're going to get the vocals to meet them. And then we're going to just keep going until we get these all kind of competing with each other in the same space where it sounds really big and awesome. And then we can start to kind of sculpt things and add effects and all that other stuff. So let's start with the drum mix bus. Neutron 5 is on it. And I have a few things here. Well, really just a couple, but I have the clipper and the sculptor. Okay. Now I'm going to explain exactly what these are doing and how I have these set up. The clipper is on a soft clip at 4.5 dB, and we have a threshold where it's just matching. So it's just going to take down just the peaks. And then I have a limiter on with a ceiling at negative 0.6. So let's hear this on the drums. Awesome. And I'm taking down quite a bit. You can see here, it's around like 2 dB, 2.5 dB or so. So if I wanted to, I can bring this threshold up a little bit and not take down as much. Now the sculptor here is going to, what I find, this just works really great. Like it knows exactly what you should be taking out typically of drums. Because for me, right when I turn this on, I'm like, yep, that's what I would have EQ'd out, right? So this is going to dynamically kind of EQ things down. So, and up. Whatever it thinks that the drums need more of or less of. And these little filters on the side allow you to stay away from the bottom and the top. But right now I want to focus on this kind of giving me a little bit more beef in the bottom and kind of scooping out the low mids. Usually like from 250 to like 600, you get this like kind of papery, congested kind of stuff in a drum kit. So that's what I'm going to focus on here. All right, listen in the snare and you can hear taking out some of that 500 and peaking up a little bit of like the 3 to 5K area, how that snare changes. It sounds like it goes from like ka to like kum, kum. And that's what I want. I want that tight, punchy snare. Just listen though as I A-B it. Just gets punchier, fatter, and that's the sound I want, is that vintage kind of drum kit from the 70s. And these are live drums, so that was fun. Limiter at 0.6 still, and that's all. That's just clipper and sculptor. Drums are sounding amazing. Let's bypass this in and out so we can get an A-B. So much better to me. Like, that's so good. The kit just got really tight and I like that. So now let's go to the bass mix bus. And what do we got here? Supercharger GT. This plugin is goated, man. Like it's so good. So damn good. All right, so check this out. Right now on this plugin, I have a little bit of compression going, which is this middle section with the big dial. And I have a little saturation in the moderate. And I'm going to turn on the hot and drive it way up for you so you can really hear what this thing does, because it has a very musical harmonic distortion to it. And then I have this fattening going on here on the character, and I have it blended back. So I'm going to go 100% wet so you can really hear what this is doing. And I'm going to go hot, and then I'm going to flip through some of the saturation on the bass. Now let's mess around with this character knob because this is really cool. This fattening, to me, it feels like the bass, you can feel it in your legs. It's really wild. So there you go. That's a great starting point for the bass. And I love this bass to be really fat, but also the intonation needs to be there when he's doing those runs and stuff, which are really, really funky. And then the Neutron 5, I'm going to follow that with the Neutron 5 because this clipper, the soft clipping here, is so good on a bass. And I'm going to also limit the crap out of it because I love a limiter on bass. Limiters are instant on attack, so they can really just kind of make the bass really stay there. It's like an anchor and it doesn't move. And I always love my bass to sound like it doesn't move. I don't want it to be going like, you know, one note bass where it's going. Yeah, I want the whole thing to just anchor. So that's what I'm doing with the limiter here. Great. Awesome starting point. We got a foundation. Let's put these drums and the bass together and bypass these plugins in and out so you can really hear what they're doing. And then we'll move on to vocals, which is, you know, that's my specialty, baby. I love vocals. All right, check it out. All right, let's get into some vocals and using Nectar. Nectar is going to be a really fun one. I'm going to show you some parallel processing. We're going to do sweetening and everything later, so just stick around in the video. And if you're liking anything that you're hearing and seeing here, learning anything, getting game perspective, you're getting inspired to do something, drop some love in the comments. Let's move on. Vocals, they make or break your song. Let's be real. Even if the mix is terrible, but the vocals sound really, really good, people are going to be like, yeah, this is a good song. So let's pop on Nectar 4 on the vocal mix bus to just get an overall kind of vibe here with the assistant.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
Okay, what I love about this plugin is right away you're going to get all these macros once it learns, and it's going to allow you to mess around with a few things. This is a macro for the shape, for the EQ really. So when we look at the EQ here and the EQ2 here, you know, any EQ in here, that's going to be kind of affecting, this is the shape. The shape is going to be affecting that. You're upscaling or downscaling the EQ depths. Okay, so check it out. I'm going to go way up here and I go here and I see the EQs going woo. And then I take it back down and we go back here and the EQ's way more flat. So that's kind of what's going on. We're just going deeper into the EQing and the shape that it's set up. Second thing we have here, these are the effects. Okay, so this is like you got reverb, delay, and then you have a dimension effect. And the dimension effect is going to be like chorusing, flanging, etc. And I am going to use chorusing on this vocal, but probably not on like the group overall because I think that'll just kind of sound sloppy. I don't like overall chorusing on group vocals, but I love like chorusing on just each individual vocal because you can like set it how you want it. So I'm just going to leave this alone for now. I do want to mess around with a delay slap kind of thing, but we might use a different plugin for that with the vocals. All right, then here is what it's going to show you. It's going to say, okay, we detected singing and balanced, right? You can go to dark, bright, or airy. This is going to be, I think, rap, right? For rap vocals. And this will be for dialogue. And then you have, I think this is where you can get your reference assistant targets. So if you have a vocal you really like, you can actually bring in that vocal reference and you can match that. So I think that's really, really dope. Super powerful. So right now I like it on the balance. That's fine. We can go bright or airy, but this is kind of a retro vibe. So balanced is good. And then we have intensity. This is going to be really affecting your dynamics. So if we go back here, we can see that there's one compressor here and that's it. It looks like just one compressor, which is cool. I love that that got dialed in because earlier versions of Nectar, I think sometimes would over compress stuff. So this is awesome that it's just one compressor, but that's going to be the dynamic stuff. So if I bring the intensity up, and you heard how intense it was when I first started it, like just playing with this dial here.
Who am I to even try? You knew
I like very little of that, like very little compression just to glue the vocals together, okay? And then the unison, this is a really, really cool effect that you can use if you want. I don't think this one will need it because it's already stacked up, but you have backer, which is like backing vocals, and you have voices, and you can actually use AI voices, which is absolutely insane. So like here, you can flip through them. There's unison, octaves, and then there's actual voices here for backers and different artists, singers. So you can actually like have that doubling your vocal. I would use this only on single vocals or else you're going to get a bunch of artifacts. It's just going to sound crazy. All right. Just a little tip for you, but I don't need that on. I'm not going to mess with that at all. The width I might bring up just a touch. So let's hear that.
Who am I to even try?
All right, and let's add just a little teeny tiny touch of overall reverb to the vocal. So this is the overall reverb, and I'm going to take off the delay. I don't want any delay right now, and we're just going to mix it in, okay? The intensity in the mix here.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
Cool, we're just going to give it a little space around the vocal. Now, if you wanted to, you can go in and tweak every little tiny parameter. And I highly recommend that if you don't know what you're doing, just kind of leave this alone, you know? Does it sound good? Yes, no, you know, mess around with the macros until it sounds how you like it. But if you really know what you're doing, you know, you've been engineering for a while, you know what you like, then come in here and really like start to make it your own. You know, it's very important. Like the de-assing might be ducking too much and you might want a little bit more sibilance in there for life. The compressor might be attacking too fast or too slow. Just mess with this, right? And also there's different styles of compressor. Like maybe you didn't want an optical, maybe you want a vintage kind of sound or a digital compression. You know, let's kind of just go to the vintage, which would be more of like a 670, like Fairchild style.
Who am I to even try?
It sounds great. Like that is so nice. To me, that's very transparent as a compressor. It's just kind of holding things together. So that's what I'm gonna do there. And then we have an EQ2 here, which I'm not really sure I like what this EQ is doing. I might tighten this up, and this 57, this I think is just really like sibilance, right? So let's just get rid of that. And then this is doing a whole lot of nothing. Man, it got really precise though, 0.2 dB down, right? Pretty wild. And then dimension, yeah, that's not on. Reverb, we have just a very, very tiny touch of that. I did notice it that it's very kind of telephoned, so I kind of want this to be a little bit more lush. So let's bring this down, right? So this, we'll bring this so it opens up a little bit of the body at the bottom. And then I also like it to come up to about 3K or so on the top here. And let's bring up the width, and yeah, check this out. Maybe even the decay can be like more like a 3 second or so, because this is kind of a lush chorus.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
Sounds great. That's awesome. Give just a little space around the vocal. And like I said, we're going to tweak each individual vocal later on with some sweetening and stuff. So I'm not going to worry too much about this setting, but I like that this has this floating band as well, because if you have something that kind of builds up or you want to peak it out a little bit, you know, you can use this floating band. Like for me, I think getting into that 700, 700 area, I'd just kind of bring that down a little bit, and then I'd open up this darkness a little bit more.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
Cool, now let's give that an AB. This is just the overall kind of chunking on the vocal mix bus with Nectar. It's nothing crazy here, but it is starting to sound more and more like a record, and that's the important part. So let's check it out, before and after.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
As you can hear, Nectar is just really kind of bringing everything together. It's giving it some width, giving it some depth and space, and all the vocals sound like they're one thing rather than here's the high vocal and here's this harmony and here's the low vocal, because that sounds really amateur when the vocals are all dislocated and disjointed. But now let's get into some flavor with the Catalyst series, and I want to just kind of spice this stuff up, you know, make it warmer, deeper, do some effects processing stuff on it, and bring in the instruments and the guitars. Let's dive in. All right, now we got to take our dish and we got to start seasoning it. We got to spice it up. We got to hit it with the paprika, the garlic, the onions, you know, it's got to get tasty. So I'm going to be using these different plugins, a bunch of them, right? They're all in the music production suite. And of course, you guys can click the description and grab all these plugins out of this package. But this is Cascadia. This is going to be a delay. We're going to have Aurora, which is going to be a reverb. We have Equinox, which is another reverb. And look at this thing. I mean, you can tweak damn near everything. And then we have the FX EQ, which I absolutely love. It's like finger painting with, you're just like doing really cool stuff with effects from saturation, reverb, delay, modulation, lo-fi. There's all sorts of stuff here that we're going to mess with. And I just called this one the Souse. And remember, I told you you would understand the routing as I go. Let's go into some of this routing and how this is going to work. Okay. So the first thing you got to understand is these are reverb, I'd call them effects returns, okay? So your send from whatever track you're on is here. This is your send, and you could put a send here. This is your send fader. It's sending to the reverb return. We call it a reverb return or an effects return because when it is coming back, it's going to the stereo bus, right? So you're returning it to the stereo bus, and that's going to be a parallel effect. So we have slap delay, we have the Aurora, the Equinox, and the Souse. And what I have on my vocals so far is all of those sends. So all 4 of them. They're all the way down, but I want to focus on this intro vocal here. And I want to start giving it some slap delay because I think it really needs a slap delay. So that's what we're going to focus on. So here is the delay one, which is the one we're going to send to. And down here on our effects, this is the slap delay accepting delay 1. We could just rename this to make it really easy to understand. Slap delay. All right, now I have Cascadia on here. So let's set up Cascadia. I'm going to think like a bonehead. I'm not going to think like, oh, I need to go and tweak this thing for 4 hours, bro. I'm going to go to presets and I'm going to go to classic because there's always going to be a slap delay. No matter what, it's a classic sound. You have chorus width, basic slap back. Bada bing. Okay, so that is on. We have to make sure when we are sending to an effect that we have it at 100%. So we're not kind of blending it in. So let's just make sure we have everything locked in here. So this looks like it's all good. I don't need to worry about any of this. This says adds delay to the dry signal. Okay, so we got to go 100% there. That's what we're looking for. That's cool animation too. This is my first time ever using this plugin, by the way. So let's check this out and let's send some of this slap delay from this lead vocal intro line.
I don't mind your summer rain keeping me up. She don't need me to rush to make good love.
Very cool, but for me, I want that specific slap delay directly on the vocal insert. And I'll show you why, because it just sounds different. Like you'll hear exactly what I'm talking about here. So we're gonna go tab and we're gonna go Cascadia. And then let's pop this on just directly as an insert. We're not gonna send it. And we're going to open up Cascadia here and go to the preset again and go to basic slapback. And like, let's listen to the difference between this and the send.
Your summer rain keeping me up. She don't need me to rush to make good love.
That's perfect. That's exactly the sound that I have in my head. I don't need to do anything else. I turned on a preset, basic slapback, and I'm like, that's great. If I did want to mess with anything, I would mess with maybe these different filters. Right? So I might want to make it a little bit more radio, which would mean like taking the top down and making the bottom come in as well. So we're just focusing on the mid-range here. But I honestly think it sounds really damn good. Let's see if we kind of make the top a little more splashy, like open that up.
I don't mind your summer rain keeping me up. She don't need me to rush to make good love.
That's wild. So there's an unmask function as well here. As you can see, let's listen to this as we turn it up and down.
I don't mind your summer rain keeping me up.
Dude, that is amazing. So what I'm liking about that is it's not throwing the S and the T's and anything else that's resonating too much into that slap. So we're getting a really, really clean effect just on the body of the vocal, which sounds really good. So it's a little spice, you know? That's really making that vocal sound so much better to my ear. So let's minimize that and let's go to the chorus now and let's send some of these to some reverb, right? So I want also like any double stuff to kind of get some reverb. So like, for example, let's hear these vocal stacks here all together.
Who am I to even try.
All right, so that's kind of the lead vocal here. So let's start to send this to the equinox verb here. So I'm just gonna crank it up, just option click it, and then I'm gonna go down to the equinox. And you can see the equinox is going to monitor left, right. So what we have to do is assign this to the all vocals bus. And remember, I told you the all vocals, the all drums, all instruments buses are there for a reason. This is why, because when I go up to that all vocals bus, I can mute it, and I've killed all of the reverbs, delays, vocal parallel effects, everything else, and I'm just going to hear the bass, the drums, the guitars, the instruments, right? So that's a big reason why I have the all groups. And also, this way, the reverb doesn't have to return to a vocal mix bus that's going through a Nectar and getting treated. That reverb can be parallel. That parallel vocal compression can be parallel. It doesn't have to go through that mix bus of what the other vocals are being processed through. So that's why we use the all guitars, vocals, bass, drums, etc. Make sure that's routed, and then let's go down to the equinox. So now on the equinox, let's find a good setting to start with. I really like a chamber or a plate reverb on vocals, but typically I like chamber on this kind of vibe. So let's go to a natural chamber. And you have a couple chambers here. You have a natural chamber and you have a color chamber, which I don't know what that means, but it's probably like some added sauce on it. So let's just go to natural chamber. Time, I'd say like 3, somewhere around there. You know, I don't time out my reverbs. A lot of people like try to time out the reverbs. I think a lot of the times for me, it's about feel. You know, if it feels right and you're getting this space around the vocal, perfect. You know, that's what I'm looking for. And because of all these really cool features like unmask in these plugins, you don't need to worry about the reverb being so long that it's like congesting the mix, because all you really have to do is go, whoop, turn up the unmask and you're done. You're good. You know what I mean? That's the cool part about these plugins. So you can also set this to a tempo, like you have note and ratio. Super dope. And all I'm going to do on the pre-delay, I like to bring a pre-delay up to like 20 to 30 milliseconds, and it detaches the reverb from the vocal, so you get a lot more depth out of it. Just love the way that sounds. All right, so let's check this out. Let's turn this up and hear it.
Who am I to even try? Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
Sounding so good. And here's another cool part about this plugin is you can do like a bypass, like a band pass, or you can do some filtering on the bottom. And what I'm going to do is just kind of take out some of that bottom. That's it. Like just the 100, like almost 200 up. I'm just going to bypass that, right? And I like this to be maybe a little bit brighter on the chamber. So let's hear this.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
That sounds incredible to me. That is so musical. So that is going to be my main vocal reverb on the chorus. So now all I have to do is go to my equinox on all these different vocals, right? And just blend as much reverb as I want into the mix on them. So let's just solo out all these vocals here. This is the chorus vocals all stacked up. And we're just going to start bringing in the equinox reverbs.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
Amazing. Now there's a really cool post-chorus vocal that I want to try some salsa on. Okay, this is the one. This is just me screaming like a weirdo.
Oh,
Not that cool, right? When it's dry, it's just not cool. So there's a reverb that I've always loved, and Native Instruments has it here, and it's in this pack. It's literally in the Music Production Suite 8, and it's ROM. And this is so cool for this kind of big effect, you know, massive sound. One of the coolest ever. And I think most people would agree with me that make or sound design anything. So let's just flip through some of these presets. Absolutely stupid. Check it out. Like so cool. Just a few things, right? So let's go through some of these presets and we'll just play this and try to dial this in, and then also throw some of that slap delay in there, right? Just gonna paint, you know, we're just gonna paint, and then we're gonna shoot it into the sauce, I'm going to throw it into the sauce. And in this sauce, we're going to make, I don't know why I keep saying sauce like that. I'm so sorry. We're going to make sure that this comes back to the all vocals bus, right? We have to remember to do that. On the effects EQ, let's find a really cool kind of delay vibe here. Yeah, a reverse, maybe. Yeah, that might be cool, right? And we'll do some really serious feedback just there. Saturate will drive. We're going to bring this up. We're going to go, bam. We're going to go up here so we can really hear that one. I think maybe even like 3K area, right? And then what else? Let's do reverb, right? Let's take this reverb and let's do this in the vocal range, like maybe the 500 area, and make this real big right here, okay? And then let's do pre-delay like really high, and the decay will go like really long as well. And yeah, we can start with a hall, but let's do chamber. I like chamber. All right, check this out. All right, pretty good starting point here. I'm going to take the high cut and we're going to cut down. So it's like, again, it's going to be dark. And then low cut, we'll take that down. And this is all sounding really cool. Feedback, I'm not sure I like the delay on this. So I'm going to go like on this, we'll go to like a eighth note maybe, and we'll just leave it. We'll just do straight eighth. Try this. All right, so I think I've landed on something I really like. I think it sounds really cool and has a vibe and lots of texture to it. So this is the ROM here, and we're also sending to the sauce, which is going to be the FX EQ. And this is just like kind of all in that low mid area with the reverb, delay, and saturate. And for the delay here, I think I want to just kind of bring the feedback down on this one. And let's hear what we got before and after on this post-chorus vocal. That's a vibe, right? That's just having fun and painting and giving textures, and it's just a good time. Now let's get all these frequencies unmasked and get everything balanced in this mix, get the guitars into the mix, and just keep going because we're going to get to the master bus and tweaking that and just getting this thing to explode. So stick around. Now we got some really cool effects and there's some vibe going on in the track, but I want to balance out the frequency spectrum and some of the dynamics with compression and with some unmasking features in Neutron 5. So let's dive right in and really explore what's going on here with the masking. I have the guitars in, I have the synths in, I have everything into the mix, and I'm liking it. So let's give it a listen, just the beginning, and I'll give you a little bit of the chorus, and then I'll explain everything that I've done so far dynamically, and then we'll talk about doing some unmasking on the chorus.
I don't mind your summer rain keeping me warm. She don't need me to rush to make good love. And when I'm ready to drown, she'll keep pulling me out.
All right, now let's focus on the chorus here, and I want to kind of pay attention to what's masking, what's on top of each other. I really hear the vocals needing to have a little bit more space. So I'm going to show you exactly how I would set that up the new way with the music production suite. And, you know, the old way is a lot harder. It's honestly like so tedious, but all right, so let's listen to the chorus here, and then I will show you how I can unmask these vocals a little bit more.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain. 2 warm clouds float above my head. I knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
Some really cool effects. I'm really liking that post-chorus now, you know, that ROM and the crazy spatial effects going on. Super sick. So to get these vocals or anything else to get unmasked from another element in the mix, remember we have our mix subgroups. So that's really where we want to work off of. And what I have here after the Neutron 5 that's doing some clipping is the Neutron 5 doing unmask, okay? And then I have another Neutron 5 on the guitar mix bus with the unmask on. I don't have it on the bass. So the reason I don't have it on the bass is I don't typically unmask on bass. I like the bass and drums to just be the foundation. Everything else like instruments, guitars, vocals, anything in the mid-range, those are the things I really want to pay attention to unmasking. The low end and the fundamental rhythm section, doing unmasking on that is going to cause some sort of artifacting. Like in EDM, you do it on purpose. You duck, right? You do the side chain with the kick and the bass. So the kick hits, the bass gets ducked, and that's an effect. And you can do that for effect. There's nothing wrong with it. But for this kind of song, I feel like it would sound unnatural and it would give you some sort of artifact doing that. So on the instrument mix, let's start there. We have the Neutron 5, we have the unmask module on, okay? So you can turn that on and off here. And what we have going on is this is going to be your filters to focus on what section, what area of the frequency spectrum you want to focus on. And on the key input, you want to give us the thing that you want unmasked, okay? So the vocals in this case are what I want clarity of, and I want to make room for the vocals on the instrument mix bus. And that's why I'm using the unmask on the instruments, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. Your sidechain is the thing you want to hear more of. So the key input, the sidechain input is going to be the thing you want to stand out and unmask from the element that you have the Neutron 5 unmask on, okay? So now all we got to do is turn this up. That's all we're literally doing. And then it's going to start to make more room for the vocals within the instrument mix bus. So let's give it a listen.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
And right away, like that's a lot. You can just tell it's so much. So you can mess around with the sensitivity, the percentage, the attack and release. And what I like to do is just very little, like until the vocal's a little bit clear. I'm not losing anything. And then the sensitivity, I can mess with this as well.
Who am I to even try?
Another thing that I really think is very cool about this plugin is that it will show you what issues are peaking in your key input, the vocals in this case. So for me, I'm hearing like there's certain phrases that are just, whoa, there's so much 500 hertz going on. So I can actually go back to the vocals and I can go like, let's just go on the vocal mix bus, go to Nectar 4, and I can mess around with ducking this 500. We could even use this EQ, right? The second EQ. So let's do this. Let's go to the 500 area, which is where that's hitting really hard. And we'll just kind of tuck this down a little bit, okay? Like 2.3 dB, and that'll give us a little less of that in the vocal. So when those phrases happen, it's not like, da, da, right? And sorry about that, but that's what I'm hearing, okay? So let's go back now to the instrument mix and let's watch this.
Who am I to even try?
Okay, and I'm noticing it's really peaking around the 600 to 700 area actually. So let's go to the Nectar 4 and let's bring this up to here. And this is like really peaked out. Now watch this as we play the vocals as well.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
So that's a good frequency to pay attention to and get a little less of in the vocals. And now let's go back to our unmask. You see how this works? So we're not guessing. We're actually seeing it. We're hearing it. It's peaking. And we know exactly what frequency range is happening because of these plugins. So now let's listen to this and watch what happens.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
So much more natural. Now let's go to the guitar bus and go to the masking here and do the same thing on the vocals.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
Amazing. Now let's bypass these two unmask plugins and A-B them so you can really hear the difference that's happening with the space of the vocal as well. You could do this even with the reverb return of the vocal and have it unmask. So anytime the reverb is on for the vocal, it can kind of like, you know, duck down the instruments or anything else that's in the stereo field, which is a really cool thing to do so your verbs can really like breathe. But let's listen, A-B. So pretty cool, magical, and this is gonna stack up. So even if you're like, dude, that's not even that big of a difference, who cares? If you do this throughout a mix that's very heavy, you're going to care. You know, mixing is about small bites, and it's about millions of small bites taken to complete this whole thing. And you just keep chiseling away at the clay, and you're gonna get it better and better and smoother and more detailed, but also more glued together, more concise and cohesive as well. So it just takes these little tiny moves throughout the mix to make a great record. Now let's move on. Let's get into some more really cool stuff and mess around with the master bus and start tweaking that again so we can really get this to tighten up a little bit more. It's time to circle back around to our bus processing and get us some more glue. And that's all going to happen on the master bus, the mix buses, and everything coming together. Cohesion. That's what we're looking for. And I love Ozone 12 for this. It's the best plugin in the world for this thing. The cohesion, the glue, just getting everything dialed in on the master bus. That's the name of the game. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to mess around with a couple different modules here. I'm going to get a dynamic EQ and I'm going to put everything ahead of my maximizer. Okay. So anything that I do, it's going to go ahead of the maximizer. So before the dynamic EQ, I just want some compression. I want to do something that's going to give me glue. So vintage tape could work because of the vibe of the record. We could do a vintage comp, you know, let's try this. Let's go boom. And then we'll do the dynamic EQ after the vintage comp. The reason I'm going to do the comp before the dynamic EQ is because I want to compress and glue, and then the dynamic EQ is going to be able to kind of tuck down anything that's poking out before it then feeds the maximizer. And I'll show you a tip and a trick to get more loudness out of your record as well using the dynamic EQ. But first, let's vintage comp. Let's get this kind of dialed in. I think we'll mess around with the mode, the threshold, all that, but I'm looking for just tickling it. Like I just want glue. Okay. So I want like a 1.5 to 1, a 2 to 1 ratio, very small amount of compression. And we want to just get maybe 2 to 3 dB of compression, if that. But it's always about using your ears. So never just look at something and meter it and go like, yeah, it's perfect, 2 dB. Like, listen, can you hear what that's doing? Is it giving you what you want? So always pay attention to that. And A-Bing a lot is how I think you can train your ears a lot better. Beautiful, giving me some glue. And what I was doing there was I was soloing out the low pass, because what I want to figure out is, do I want that low subby bass hitting the compressor, right? Because sometimes it'll trigger the compressor too much and you'll get a little bit of a pumping effect. And I was starting to get that. So I just want to be a little bit aware of that. 2 to 1 ratio, attack at 40 milliseconds, which is really fast, but it's also letting the transient through, the punch, the kick, the snare, etc. And then the release at 93.5 milliseconds. All this could change as we go, but this is giving me the kind of glue that I really want. Now the dynamic EQ, let's mess with this. And what I'm really gonna look for is ways to tighten up the low mids. And then also there's just kind of some peaky stuff in the middle that is driving me crazy with the vocals and the piano and all the synths. So we'll tap in with that as well, which it's right in here. Just looking for a little bit more control on the low end before it hits the maximizer. Okay, so all I'm doing is like half a dB down. It's not even that much. And I'll adjust the threshold so that it just, you know, knocks it down just a touch.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
Okay, there's a lot going on in that mid-range that I'm not liking on certain words and phrases, okay? So I'm just going to tighten this up just a touch, and I'm going to leave it right here, just a dB and a half down. That's all it's doing as it crosses the threshold. And then the maximizer. This is where we get to have a little fun with getting more glue going, a little bit of soft clipping. We can do some other stuff as well. But, you know, this is really going to be our final stage. So we have to be careful not to tweak the final stage before we've added all our mix elements. What I want to do is get 80% there and leave 20% so that I can do my final moves after I've done the rest of my mix. But as I mix, I go back and forth, you know, because it's a modular process. Like one thing is going to affect the other. The master bus can tell you stuff. It can give you a scope into what might be wrong with other elements in the mix, which you can go back and forth with. You can go to the mix buses. You can go to the individual kick, snare, etc. So this is a great way of just kind of learning your mix as well. But let's adjust some things. Let's adjust the soft clip, the upward compression. We'll just mess around with some character and some gain and all that stuff.
To even try, you knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain. To all clouds float above my head. I knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain. Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain. To all clouds float above my head. I knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
This is starting to come together, right? We're getting this glue, we're getting cohesion, and it's feeling the way I want it to feel, which is really round and fat, but then also kind of vintage in the middle and not too much top end. Like I want that to be pretty rolled at the top. Now, the soft clipping and the clipper itself is really giving me so much on the harmonics. And I have it on the light setting, so I have it on the light soft clip, but you can go to medium and high and just hear the difference between these, because once you hit delta on this, you'll really hear what it's doing. So let's hold down delta here and let's check out the soft clip and go through the algorithms and bring up the percentage. And you'll hear the difference, like what the distortion is, the harmonics that it's adding.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
So you can hear there's a big, it's like a threshold that it's hitting. And where I had it set, it was just getting those transients and the kick and the snare, right? So you're getting this life that's happening. So you get a perception of loudness and dynamics, even though you're getting really loud. You're at negative 11 LUFS. And we can take the LUFS even smaller and get the crest factor even smaller by doing a few other things. But let's go back to the mix now and let's just dial in some really kind of ear candy special effects and stuff. And then we'll come back to this and we'll finish off the master all the way. Because look, we have only Ozone 12 on the master bus right now, and this is all we're doing is 3 plugins. So now that we have a little bit of that Ozone 12 rocking and we got these 3 plugins on here, what else can we do to really make this mix come alive and open up? I think another module that I would use here would be something like either the spectral shaper or the stabilizer. So the stabilizer is a great one because it's going to kind of give you more clarity in the mix. And you could either put this before or after the dynamic EQ. You know, I'm really going for like a funk kind of thing. So we want to look for something that's going to give us that big, beefy low end. Let's look like EDM might even be a good call for this one. It might make it a little too bright, but I'm not worried about that. We have these 3 bands at the bottom. And what this will do is it'll shape it or it'll only cut. So let's try some shape on this and just see what we can do to open up the mix a little bit more and separate the elements.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
Like, that did wonders for the track. It just really opens it up. And I love how that sounds. Just incredible. We get some other tools as well within the music production suite here that are really, really, really cool. Another great plugin that's included in the music production suite is this one here from Brainworks. And this is called BX Refinement. This is a great plugin for getting rid of harsh stuff. So I could either use this on the master bus before Ozone 12, or I could use it on the different subgroups. Like, for example, if the vocals are getting a little too harsh or the drums and cymbals are getting a little too harsh, it does such a good job at dampening those harsh frequencies. It also has some saturation here. So check this out. I'm just going to start to tweak this dampening here. And that's really what this is all about. And then we can kind of mess around with the modulation of the dampening. And then you have saturation, you have presence, and you have a mix knob here. Now, I'm just going to put this in mid plus side, and we're just going to listen and try to find what's going on that might be a little too harsh in the mix. That's a pretty powerful plugin. I don't know how they do it, but it just, like, you turn it up and it's like, oh, it's nice and warm. Like, all the harshness goes away. So I'm going to A/B this for you, and I might be overdoing it, but you know, I'm just trying to let you really hear what it's doing. So let's A/B it. Just like taking the icing and make it really smooth on the cake. That's what that's doing, and it's incredibly powerful. Last thing I want to show you in this video is how you can really make sure that your stuff is translating, even if you're in a bad room and you're using some prosumer grade speakers and, you know, you just don't really know. Maybe your ears aren't super trained. You haven't been doing this for 2+ decades like me, you know, and you're just trying to figure it out. This is a great plugin for that. And this is included as well in the music production suite. It's called the Tonal Balance Control. And this is a great way to just have a good visual representation that you're actually hitting the places you want to hit in your frequency spectrum. Okay. Now, this is not like the end all be all. I'm not going to say that, but it's a great reference point and it will help you make sure that your stuff is translating. I know that this track right now, how I have it mixed and how I like it, has a lot of bass. It's very bass heavy, but you can also select a source. Like if you wanted to, you could say, hey, I just want to, you know, show me just the source that I'm selecting, like a mix bus, right? But also you can get really fine detailed and tuned into this where you can see a curve very, very well done. And then if you go through these, you have bass heavy, country, you can kind of find the genre that you're going for. So I'm going to actually go with R&B soul, and we could kind of flip through some of these. Bass heavy is probably where I'm going to end up, but let's start with R&B soul, and then we can go to pop. Pop is going to be a lot, you know, a little bit less bass and a little bit more top end. And then we have like folk music, we have country, we have EDM, right? EDM is probably a good target for this one, but I'm going to just stick with R&B soul because I think that's what it really is. It's much more rolled off. And let's listen and watch this and see if we're within this range. Now, this is such a great tool, right? Because for me, I've been mixing for a few hours now on this, and I want to make sure that I'm not ear fatiguing. And I can see that there's like a 5K boost, like it's pretty peaked at 5K, and I'm probably getting a little too much sub at the bottom. So let's go to Ozone 12, and this is really fun to do. I can go into the dynamic EQ, and I can kind of bring this down, or I could even have it do a shelf, right? Like a Baxendal. So if I do Baxendal, I can bring this up, and I can just kind of shelf down just the sub stuff. And that's just going to help this translate this song. And then I can also go in here and I can take this 5K area and just dip down when there's too much of it, right? I'm not EQing out 5K because it might be great in certain parts where the vocal's not playing and you're getting like some nice hi-hat dancing and stuff like that. So I'm going to just go to that 5K area and we're going to pay attention to this. And I'm going to look at this and mess with this while I check out the tone control, so that I'm kind of locked in. Now, I know my speakers and my studio very well, but again, I've been mixing for about 3 hours now and my ears are getting fatigued, which means my high end is, I'm not perceiving it as well. So I might be boosting too much high end. This is another great sign. See how this is peaking up super hard just on that sub bass when the sub bass is playing. So that's a great thing to do. Now go back to the mix and I can go, okay, that sub bass is like going crazy, right? So I can go back into the mix and I can find the sub bass, which is at the post chorus here. And I could just bring it down in volume, honestly. Like boom. And then if I wanted to, I could come in here with like an EQ of some sort, right? So we have under native instruments, this pack also includes the SSL style stuff, which is great. Awesome for cutting, especially. So let's find that, the solid EQ, and let's just kind of bring down a little bit of that. Okay. So we're going to take the low frequency down and we're going to go up to, I don't know, maybe we'll go up to like 100 hertz or so. Somewhere around here. And then we're going to make sure that this is on bell, and that should take care of some of that overdone frequency boost there. So now again, remember I am looking at R&B and soul, so I could switch this out and say, hey, I want bass heavy, because you know, I want this to be pretty bass heavy. So I think I'm in a really great spot, and this is how I can get my mix to translate really well using all these different tools in combination. And you don't have to guess. You don't have to sit here and go, well, I don't know. I have HS5s. They don't have any sub, right? So you can use this as a great way to make sure that you can see and visualize how your music might translate. Now, to finish this off, I just want to give you a really clear A-B of where the track was, right? The reference point, because I have the reference bounce up here, and where we ended up. And then let's also look at Insight and see what we got for our crest factor. And we'll look at our LUFS as well. And we'll just kind of see like, wow, how far did we come along, right? So here is the reference, and we'll bounce back and forth.
I don't mind your summer rain keeping me up. She don't need me to rush to make good love. And when I'm ready to drown, she's pouring me out. We won't stop, spill like waterfall. Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain. Two old clouds float above my head. I knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
So there you have it. That is the full mix and master with just the Music Production Suite 8. And I left out so many other plugins that I could use in this mix still. So if you guys don't have this package, just grab it. Like, grab it. In the description, it's all you need to mix and master a record. You can learn these plugins and go so far with them. I hope you guys really got a lot out of this video and you understand like how to use some of these plugins and how I'm using them. And you know, you get a little inspiration or something. Just show some love in the comments and let me know if you have any questions at all. All right, and I'll see you guys next time.